This is a webinar brought to you by Synchronous Solutions and ActionFlow. I'm Reese Watt. I'm the CEO of ActionFlow, and the other presenter is Rick Phelps from Synchronous Solutions. Many of you are ActionFlow users already, so you know, but ActionFlow provides software to the countertop industry. Synchronous Solutions are consultants that help the countertop industry be more profitable and effective. They deal in other industries as well, but they've done a lot of work in the countertop industry. So we're going to talk about maximizing profits using throughput dollars today. Before I begin, I want to mention April 25th and 26th in St. Louis, we're going to have our Profits and Peace retreat. It's targeted primarily to ActionFlow users, but also people who are thinking about ActionFlow and just wanting to know about best practices in the industry. It's sponsored by Synchronous Solutions and Fabricator's Choice. We did it last year, got a lot of great feedback. We are delving into how to use ActionFlow and how to do things the best way. Also have some good food and some fun, and it's a really good thing. So we'd love for you to join us. You know, we're going to be talking about a lot of things there, but the stuff we're talking about today we'll be diving into as well. So it would be another opportunity to learn more about what we're talking about today. So I am a little newer to these concepts of throughput accounting, and I think I've learned a lot, in large part to talking with Rick and Ed Hill, but you're also hearing about it, or I'm hearing about it at different events, and people in the industry are talking more and more about this throughput accounting. So I feel like I've learned a lot, but I still feel like I have a lot to learn. So I'm going to start out with maybe about 20 minutes and share just a few concepts and kind of like some things that I've thought of and a way to grasp what's going on here with this, and then I'm going to turn it over to Rick, and he's going to dive in. And there will be a little overlap, but some of that's intentional. That I think to hear things a couple different times, it helps you grasp it. But also, I would just like to say that you know, if you're starting to learn this stuff and it's kind of fuzzy or you don't quite get it, that's certainly been my experience. That it takes a lot of sort of cycles through the concepts and the ideas before it starts to sink in, and you gradually get to figure it out better and better. So I'm going to share some of my perspectives. You know, there's multiple things that throughput accounting can do and how it can help you. The primary thing we're going to talk about today is maximizing output of your shop, and also just helping you to clarify, you know, what jobs you should be doing. You know, do I do commercial jobs, or, you know, high price houses, or, you know, more of a boilerplate type of stuff? You know, how do I choose which jobs to do? So it can help with that as well. You know, there's vocabulary that you hear, and at some point you just kind of need to understand what people are talking about. And throughput accounting is often contrasted with a more traditional cost accounting. So this is just a little display I came up with to kind of define the key components. So we have the cost accounting on the left and the throughput accounting on the right. And this is just a very simple illustration, assuming you have 30,000 in sales and you end up with $5,000 of profit for a month or a week or whatever. And they both agree on revenue or sales. You're selling countertops, so you have this top line number that you start with. And at the bottom, they obviously both agree that you're going to have a profit at the end of the period. So you have your sales minus expenses, and you have a profit. So those two are exactly the same. Now, in cost accounting, you've probably all heard about cost of goods sold, and there's two primary components: your material and your labor to produce those goods. Material is pretty obvious in our business. It's slabs and sinks. The labor portion of your COGS is that labor that was directly contributing to producing those goods. So, what you're paying your shop installer guys, so what did it take to produce those goods? So you start with your revenue, you take off your material and your labor as cost of goods sold. In this example, it's 15,000, and then you end up with something you call a gross margin. So this gross margin is often used as a measure of your profitability. And then you have overhead, which are things like salaries for administrators and sales and your rent and insurance and all that stuff that it takes to run a business, but don't directly contribute to producing those goods. So in this case, it's 10,000, you take that off and you get 5,000. So you got cost of goods sold, gross margin, and overhead, and then revenue and profit. Now, in throughput accounting, you start with your revenue, and they also, are going to recognize this material. Again, it's primarily slabs and sinks. There's a term you're going to use called truly variable that you're going to hear, truly variable expense attached to the material. And that just makes sense. If you do a whole bunch of jobs on a certain month, you're going to use a lot of material. If you don't do many jobs, you won't use much material. So that varies with the amount of work you're doing. And it's very easy to calculate. You know what you paid for your slabs, you know what you paid for your sinks, etc. So T-dollars is very easy to calculate. All you do is you take your total sales minus your material, and you got this figure called T-dollars. And it's one of the really nice benefits of it is that it is so easy to calculate. Now, this next line, this direct labor, is probably the key difference between throughput accounting and normal cost of goods or cost accounting. And the T-dollars doesn't really even have or doesn't attempt to define anything called a gross margin. And I'd say there's maybe two main reasons for that. Number one, in our industry, you're paying these guys in the shop, and some people might have contractors and do it that way, but for the most part, these guys are employees. If you don't have anything to do for the day, they may be twiddling their thumbs, but you're probably still going to pay those guys. And over the long term, you might have layoffs or hire more people, but in terms of the short term, you're paying those guys whether you're using them or not. And so it's not really a variable expense in that regard. The other thing is that it's a little tricky to, like, of all the people you're paying, which of those salaries really went towards producing the goods and not. And you have to make decisions about allocating certain portions of your labor to that. And that's a little bit of a tricky decision. So in throughput accounting, you don't really even distinguish. You take all your labor and all your other expenses, and you put them into what you call operating expense. And in this case, it's 15,000, and you just lump that all together. And so your T-dollars minus your operating expense is your profit. So we'll go more into how it's used and why you think of it this way, but those are the basic components of throughput accounting. So you're wanting to get as much work through your shop, and I actually, there's this. We all know. I think we're all familiar with the term bottleneck. In the throughput accounting, you typically use the word constraint to talk about that point in your process, which is the the slowest point, or where the most narrow. And so, I found a graphic of a bottle of stuff flowing through a bottle, and I cut it up and put two things together, and I'm illustrating that, those blue things are jobs going through your shop, and at some point you're going to have the constraint. I think it tends in the countertop industry to be the CNC, or the edge point where you're putting your edges on, that's the slowest part. But in measuring this flow through your shop, you have to have a metric. And you could say, well, we did 5 jobs today, so the number of jobs could be a metric, or the industry standard has tended to be square feet. Hey, we did like 500 square feet today. So that's a metric. Revenue, hey, we did $10,000 worth of jobs. You could measure it by revenue, but throughput accounting says there's some problems with that, and that if you start measuring your output through your shop in T dollars, that you're going to get some really nice advantages. So T dollars is about a metric to measure output. And the other key element they're going to, as part of this, is that the point you want to measure that is at your constraint. So you want to measure T dollars at the point of constraint is going to be a very important thing. So I'm going to have just a couple slides, which are screenshots from ActionFlow. And this first one is just a simple island. And, I've created this specifically just to illustrate some things, maybe not terribly realistic. You could have, I guess, a huge boardroom or a big island in your kitchen, but it's one simple piece with an each edge, and that 60 times 96, when you multiply that out, this is 40 square feet. So it's about the simplest 40 square feet you could imagine. On the right panel, you can see that the cost for that slab was $921. So square feet, well, up in the yellow, you see the cost for this was $1,551. You take off the 900 for your material, and you get T dollars of 630. Now, one other nice thing that ActionFlow has recently implemented is the ability to calculate your hours for your various tasks in this. And down in the bottom, you see the line that says edge, the bottom right, and it says 1.04. So, we're not experts on this. You could put in exact data, but, we're, for illustration purposes, basically saying this is going to take an hour at the point of constraint. So we've got 1. Now here we got a miter with waterfall edges. And the key thing is that this is also 40 square feet. Those X's are intended to represent, is how you show a finished edge. And in this case, it's mitered, so each of those edges goes down to the floor. And so here we have another top that is 40 square feet. So the exact same square footage. Now this, because you're charging for that extra work, you're getting more revenue, and you're also getting more T dollars. It's still, if you see that line that says 920, it's the exact same material. So you take your revenue, take that material off, you get T dollars, and then we're estimating the hours to put all those edges is 3.7. So here, there's just, to some degree, it's obvious. I mean, you all know that some square footage is harder than others, but this is just illustrating that if you had all of those easy jobs, if you had said, hey, I want to do 500 square foot per day, and they were all easy, at the end of the day, or 1 or 2 o'clock, everyone might be twiddling their thumbs. If it were all the more difficult ones, you might not get it done in time, or you might be paying overtime. So there's a fairly basic point that the metric to use is square foot is not ideal. In this case, there's 2 different jobs with the same square footage. The revenue's significantly different. It's 30% higher. And the T dollars, because of the way T dollars are calculated, even though the material is the same, it's going to reflect the fact that there's more work being done in the second job, and um, that additional accuracy with T dollars has benefits that we're going to talk more about. And then finally, at the bottom, the hours of the constraint. Obviously, the one with the mitered edges takes more hours. So there's that. And again, Ed's going to kind of circle, or not Ed, Rick is going to circle back and go into this in more detail. But there's just some basic ideas there that are illustrated. I want to show one other illustration here, because I was really trying to get my head around. You get deep into these numbers, and what's all going on here? And this was my own attempt to clarify this for me, and I think it maybe boils down some concepts into a pretty clear illustration. And I thought of a gold mine. Let's say you had two different gold mines, and the ore in one gold mine was 25% pure, and the other one was 20% pure. When you boil it down, you get more gold from the pure stuff than the other, and so that's an analogy for your gross margin, for your profitability. And there's this sort of obvious thought that, well, you'd want to do the jobs that have the higher margin. I mean, that seems obvious. But if you bring in this idea of a constraint, I'm saying the one mine, when you're trying to get it out, you have this narrow gap that's only 2 meters. The second one, you have 3 meters. And let's just say you can load up one wagon per day and pull it out of this long canyon. And so in the first one, yeah, you got 25% pure, but you can only get 2 units, so you end up with 50 units of gold once you bring it all out and melt it down. Whereas the second one, if you can, because you can get more out, 20% times 3 is 60 units. So when you consider your constraints, and basically just how much of this work can I do, and if you can't do enough of the higher margin work, then that may not be the best decision. So that's just pretty high level illustration of the fact that there may be other things to consider than like your gross margin when you're making some of these decisions. So that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to turn it over to Rick, and he's going to give you a lot more insight into some of these concepts.
All right. Is everybody looking at the slides here? Got a thumbs up? All right. Perfect. So thank you, Reese, for that overview of throughput accounting and throughput dollars and how we use them. My name's Rick Phelps. I'm one of the principals of Synchronous Solutions. And on the line with us today are a bunch of our team, starting with Ed Hill, who is the founder of Synchronous Solutions. And Synchronous Solutions is a consulting and coaching company that's focused on the countertop fabricating industry. We have been working, and specifically Ed has been working in this industry for over 20 years now. And we have a lot of clients, many of them are on the call today, who have applied these concepts and had a lot of success. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And at the end of this session, there's going to be a QR code. And what we're offering for those of you who have taken the time to spend a little bit of time here at lunchtime this morning, we're going to offer you a complimentary assessment to see how the application of this thinking and these tools could apply to your business and the impact it might have. So at the end of the session, there'll be a QR code on the screen. If you just snap your camera, that it'll take you to a landing page that will allow you to sign up for that assessment or our newsletter, or just book a call with us and answer any questions you have. But throughput dollars is an absolutely critical metric in every business. It's particularly true in the custom fabricating business. If you want to create a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without you, the owner. And this is the thrust of Synchronous Solutions business, is to help fabricating shops build extremely profitable businesses that ultimately work without the owner, so that you have an amazing team running amazing systems, creating amazing results. And we help fabricators do that for everything from how to improve sales if you're market constrained, to how do you get more through your shop if you're internally constrained. So this is all built, the things that we do at Synchronous Solutions are built upon the concepts of Ellie Goldratt. And Ed Hill was one of the folks that were really instrumental in bringing this gentleman to the States. He's an Israeli, or was an Israeli physicist, who got asked by a friend to apply the first principles concepts of physics to businesses. And he did, and to great success with the companies that he worked with and the concepts that he applied. And he wrote it up in a seminal book, The Goal, that's been used in business schools and continues to be used in business schools ever since the early 80s when it came out. And it's a novel. I recommend everybody on this call read it. If you've already read it and not applied anything, reread it. I've probably read it 40 or 50 times myself and given away hundreds of copies. The Goal is about a manufacturing company and how basically these kind of companies make money. And it starts with, well, what's the goal of business? And hopefully everybody can agree the goal of business is to make more money now and in the future. Now, are there other goals? Are there things around keeping your clients happy, keeping your customers happy, keeping your team happy and engaged? Absolutely. And all of those other important goals all tie into in the future, right? If you make more money now and you piss off your clients doing that, you will not have a future. Similarly, if you don't treat your employees well, if you don't have an engaging workplace, the future is at risk. And so at Synchronous Solutions, when we work with you, we help you build a holistic model and a holistic system that treats your customers like gold, your employees like gold, and produces gold. So I love Reese's gold mine analogy, because every business is or can potentially be a gold mine. So question is that we're going to talk about a little bit today is what stands between your business and making more money, and what to do about it. How do we work with folks like yourselves to break through and take businesses from wherever you are to levels that you haven't even imagined? And what's funny is the obstacle or the constraint in every business is the same ultimately. And it's what's in your head. It's what you believe and what you think to be true. And so a lot of what we're doing is helping you understand and break some paradigms on how you view business and how you make money. And to help along this way, I love Mark Twain, and he has a fantastic quote. It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that ain't so, right? And so we're going to be exploring today some things that you might know for sure that might not be exactly true, right? And hopefully in this process, it'll get you thinking, it'll getting you wanting to know more, and that would be a good thing. All right, so let's start with a question I love to ask my clients at the very beginning of our engagement. Is there a fair price or a fair profit that you should receive for your product? And, duh, of course there is, right? Everybody knows that that's got to be true, right? And what I'd like to do is build upon what Reese started and really understand how we come to that belief that there is, in fact, a fair profit or a fair price that we should receive for our products, right? And it starts with understanding cost accounting. And it starts with sales. Every business has a sales funnel. Many in the fabricating have a very poor business sales funnel because, well, it's just been order taking and, handling everything that's coming at you. as we hit downturns like we're in right now, really understanding and improving that sales funnel can be very important. And if you're having issues there, by all means, hit the QR code at the end and let's talk about that. But sales come in, that's your revenue, that's your top line. And that money comes into the business and it splits into two pieces. And you'll see this in your income statement or your profit and loss statement, where the top line is revenue. The next section, as Reese was pointing out, is cost of goods sold. That has two components. Some of the money goes to your suppliers, and some of the money goes to the labor in your shop, usually referred to as direct labor. Right? And then the money that's left over, we call gross profit. And the gross profit, that profit goes to pay the other costs of the business. And in some businesses, usually the more complex businesses, they'll divide that into variable costs, fixed costs. Variable costs are like your energy and your water bills, things that vary month to month. And then the fixed costs are your administration, your insurance, as Reese had pointed out. Of course, Uncle Sam wants to take their take, and probably local governments take their take as well. But each job drops a little bit of profit into your profit bag. And this notion is where we get the concept that a fair profit exists for every product I sell. Of course there does. Unfortunately, folks are starting to experience this in this industry. Every now and then you hit a month where your net profit is zero or really low, essentially zero. And that just ain't right. If every job has a profit, how do we end up not making any money some months or not making much money? We've fielded a number of calls from folks over the last few months that are very much involved in very high margin business. They only do the high dollar, high margin business, and they're not making the money they believe they should be. And how does that happen? That ain't right, right? And unfortunately, when we have this mindset, when we have this belief that there's profits with every job, it forces us to focus on what's stealing from those profits, right? What's going on with our labor? What's going on with our variable costs? What's going on with our fixed costs? And that drives us into a cost-cutting mindset, right? And that can be extremely damaging to a business. Does anybody here on this call know of a business that cost-cut themselves to prosperity? I'm guessing not. There are a lot of companies that have cost-cut themselves to bankruptcy. So this is a mindset that comes out of how we look at the numbers and how we view the numbers, right? And fundamentally, what I'm telling you is that cost accounting is a useless model for understanding your business and how to make money. Now, don't get me wrong. You need to have an accountant. You need to do GAAP accounting to value your inventory, to do your taxes. That's got to happen. However, what you don't have to do is use that information to make business decisions. And what you'll see here is an alternative that is actually far more effective. All right. So this gross profit thing puts in our heads the idea that there should be a profit with every job. And the reality is there is no fair price and there is no fair profit that you should receive for your product. That's a bit much. If that's not true, then what is true? How do we look at our business if there's not a fair price and a fair margin? All right. Well, we need to change our model. We need to change how we look at our business and how we understand our business from a financial perspective. And that better model is the model that was put together, or at least really promoted, by Dr. Goldratt, right? And he called it throughput accounting. And this is going to be redundant with what Reese showed us, but it starts with taking out the direct labor. And the reason we do that is because it's really not possible to figure out what portion of the labor and in your shop actually went to any given job. And the reality is we pay our people, whether they're extremely productive in a day or very unproductive in a day, we pay them the same amount. It's fixed cost. And so what Goldratt realized is that this idea of labor being applied is and associated with a job is not accurate. In fact, it's a fool's errand. And so we take that out of the equation, and that changes cost of goods sold to truly variable expenses, and it changes gross profit to throughput dollars. And truly variable expenses are those dollars that immediately leave the business, right? It's the money that when you sell a job, you pay to get your slabs and your sinks and your corbels in, right? It's what you do to buy the inventory that you're going to convert into throughput. And then, well, all that other stuff, that just can all combine into one big bucket. And the reality in the business, and it's the reality in your business, if you look at your financial statements, is that your operating expenses from month to month do not change substantially other than timing issues, right? When you pay certain bills versus other bills, when some big lumps of things come through and go out. Fundamentally, your operating expenses are consistent through time, will grow through time, but month to month, very little difference. And so we'll simplify the model down and make it so that we're looking at every month we have a bucket of expenses. Every month we need to pay our bills, and that's where things start. So the same revenue comes in, it splits. Some of it goes out to our suppliers. That's not our money. That's their money. And we buy the inventory. And then there's the throughput dollars that stay in the business, right? And these are the dollars that represent the value added that you're creating in your shop. You're taking a slab of stone or quartz or solid surface, you're machining it, you're polishing it, you're doing whatever you do to it and selling it. And the difference between the revenue and the cost of the slab is the throughput dollars, the value added that you brought to the party, right? And those throughput dollars, hang on just a second, have to fill up that bucket. You need to bring enough throughput dollars into your business to hit this point right here. And this is called break even. And at this point, how much profit has been made in the business? Not a penny, right? That's why it's called break even. We just paid enough. The next job and the job after that now overflow that bucket into your profit bag. And it's from that flow that Uncle Sam and the locals take taxes, right? Now, which jobs created that profit? That's an interesting question. Clearly, it was the last jobs whose throughput dollars went into that bag, but those throughput dollars wouldn't have gotten there if all the other jobs hadn't come before it. And this is almost an existential crisis in thinking here. You know, how much profit went with each job? We don't want to dig down into that hole. The reality is you're going to fill the bucket, and every job after that will go into your profit bag. So this creates an interesting opportunity for us. If we know how big our bucket is, 1 month's worth of operating expenses, and we know how much profit we want to make, then we can add those two numbers together, and that would tell us the total throughput dollars required in a month. We need enough throughput dollars to fill the bucket and enough throughput dollars to fill our cash bag. And that number is knowable. And we could take that and divide it by number of days or weeks in the thing. And let's keep it simple. We'll have 4 weeks. And so we can add to the top of that tank, at the top of the bucket, the profit we want to make, and schedule your profits. This is one of the first things we do with our clients. When we work with you, we will help you understand throughput dollars and how to schedule your profits, right? So here's the notion. There's no reason you should ever not be making money if you can keep your sales funnel full, you know how to get your folks out there selling product, and understand and schedule your plant to make money. So that's the first major thing. And this is important. Understand that you can, in your business, definitively create the profits that you want It's just a matter of doing the work and making it happen. All right. So the next thing that we want to think about is, what limits the flow of throughput dollars? And like every chain that has a weakest link, every production process has a weak link, has a place that limits the capacity of the shop. And knowing that is of immense value. Knowing where that pinch point is, well, the essence of profound insight, simplicity. We started with simplifying the financials and taking out all the complexity of gross profit and making just throughput dollars. Now we're going to take that and simplify your shop down to one place that actually limits how much throughput dollars you can get. So we want to understand profits. Through that one spot in your plant, you need to get the throughput dollars needed to fill the bucket to the level that you've predetermined. And that gets us into rates. What controls filling the bucket? And it's the rate at which the tap is flowing, right? If you're trying to fill a bucket with a spigot on your house, if you open the tap a little bit, it fills slowly. If you open it up a lot, it fills fast, right? We want to fill the bucket quickly. The sooner you fill the bucket and start overflowing it, the more opportunities you have to make more money. All right. And so this is where some of the really good things in ActionFlow come to bear, right? This is a calendar view of install. And I'm just going to pick a day and we're going to pretend it's a week, but we can blow up. Let me throw that. So right there, we're going to blow up Friday. And on this calendar view is the total throughput dollars for that day. And although the diagram says week, suppose that was the week's worth of numbers. We could take that and say, okay, that equates to what we need in that time. And because ActionFlow captures this number and summarizes it for us, we can actually schedule profits. And if we schedule them and we know what our target is, at the end of the week, we can know exactly where we are relative to where we want to be. Right? And in this picture, you see that we're a little bit shy. Right? That gap between the top of the green part and the red line that's the top of or the end of week one, that gap will persist. Right? That's what you're missing in net profit. And we know this at the ending of week one. With our larger shops, when we do synchronous flow, we actually have a system to help clients manage and monitor that on a daily basis. There's absolutely zero reason in your business that you shouldn't know exactly how much profit you're making day in and day out, month in and month out. You should not have to wait for your financial statement to come 2 and 3 weeks into the following month to know that, oh, we had a crappy month. You can know it proactively. And when you know it proactively, you can do something about it. You can make adjustments. You can do something to make a difference. All right, so that's how we schedule throughput dollars. There are other aspects of scheduling by throughput dollars that are very important that Reese alluded to. And that's the fact that throughput dollars actually relate to the amount of work that's being done on that work, which is a better measure of capacity consumed than square footage. And so by scheduling with throughput dollars, our clients basically level the flow or ease the flow or make more consistent the flow through the shop. And having consistent flow through the shop is a game changer. And the extent of the game changing depends on how variable you've been, but it's not unusual after working with us for a period of time for our clients to see a 20 to 30, sometimes even more increase in the installed capacity with no other changes being made than leveling the flow. And that's because when you have smooth flow through your shop, you can get more through it. There's not high days and low days, there's just good days. All right. So that's point one. Point two, we're going to get back to that profound insight around the constraint and the knowledge that different jobs flow at different rates. So we're going to consider a hypothetical shop where the routers, CNC routers, or the fab shop, if it primarily goes to the fab shop for a more complex miter job, are the constraint. And if we're going to take those same two jobs that Reese looked at, both 40 square feet, and look at how they impact the system. And I'm going to blow it up so you can see it there. The throughput dollars are in here. And down in the bottom corner, the time on the in the CNC is right there. And that allows us to create a very important metric, which is throughput dollars per constraint hour. So we can take the $630 divided by the 1.4 hours and see that when this job is going through the shop, the rate of throughput dollars flowing into the bucket is at 606 throughput dollars per hour. And it's that rate that makes all the difference. Because remember, we want to fill the bucket up and overflow it. And faster is better. And faster in this case means more throughput dollars per time unit. All right. So that's a simple island. The mitered waterfall example that Reese had, if you remember, had higher throughput dollars. That's a good thing. And by the way, this job would have a lot higher margin too. If you're looking and thinking about your work in terms of margins, it's a good, really good margin job. However, in the constraint, it takes a lot more time. And so your throughput dollars per constraint hour, which is the measure of relative profitability for jobs, is a mere $296 per hour, throughput dollars per hour. And so if we compare these two at the pipe, we got 606 versus 296. And that means that Simple Island is generating throughput dollars to fill your bucket and overflow into your profit bag at twice the rate of your more, quote, profitable, high margin waterfall job. Now, these numbers are made up. They'll be different in your shop. But wouldn't it be nice to know for the different jobs in your shop, how are they flowing? How are the throughput dollars flowing? And that's when we work with you, that we help you put the systems and processes in place to learn about this and to understand it and to leverage it in your business. And so understanding that things flow at different rates, and that's true on individual jobs. It's also true in different markets. The home center market will flow at a rate. Commercial jobs will flow at a different rate. Builders will flow at yet a different rate. And understanding the rates of flow in your different markets and being able to balance and tune your system is what we do with our clients to help them achieve the levels of profitability that they desire. Right. And I guess one of the sobering things about when you do this analysis is that higher margin doesn't mean more profitable. It might, but in many cases, it does not. All right, so we spent a little bit of time talking about cost accounting, and hopefully you realize that if you are an ardent supporter and follower and build your business decisions based on cost accounting, well, this quote from Mark Twain may apply to you. It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that ain't so. And so if you built your business around understanding of gross profit and the like, then please click on the QR code that's coming up here and let's talk, because there's a lot that can be done to help you become more profitable in your business. One of my favorite poems is by Robert Frost, The Road Less Taken. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Synchronous Solutions has been guiding fabricating shop owners down the road less traveled for over 20 years now. And get us a call. Let us help you get down the road less traveled. There's the QR code. You can book a complimentary assessment of how throughput dollars can change your world. You can just get more information, book a call with any of us, or sign up for our new Synchronous Solutions newsletter. We are about world abundance through business re-education. Hopefully, we've got you thinking about your business a little bit differently so that you can build a commercial profitable enterprise that works without you and treats your employees amazingly, your customers amazingly, and gives you the profits you need to reinvest in your community as well. That's what we're all about, world abundance. we can believe we can achieve that through business reeducation, and that's what today was all about. With that, I will stop and we'll take questions.
Yep.
Yeah, we got you now, Ed.
So, Rick, a common question is, how long does it take from beginning to end to implement synchronous flow in a business?
All right, that's a great question. And as in all questions, the answer is it depends. It depends on where you are on the journey. Um, and that has partly to do with size, partly to do with where your team is when we get started. But in a business that's well established, it can be 3 or 4 months. With businesses that are on the smaller side and still building their team, we often start with helping build the team, get the right people in the right roles, and work our way into understanding throughput dollars and implementing synchronous flow. So it can take, as short as a couple of months, a few months, and as long as as long as it takes for the business to grow and build their team. So good question.
We always work at your pace. We recognize everybody's different. You have a business to run, so we can do it as rapidly as you want, but we always relate it to how quickly you can consume it and put it into operation.
I've been having lots of discussions the past year or two with Ed and Rick, and especially over the past week or two. And Rick was sharing one story with me just about, I think I'll get this basically right. He was talking to somebody and they did this $T analysis, and they realized that they needed to get more work through their shop. And there's the phrase, necessity is the mother of invention. Well, if you thought you were doing all right, then you're not necessarily going to look for those inefficiencies and those gaps in your processes where you don't know it. But if you do this analysis and look at your T dollars, and you need, hey, like we need 10,000 T dollars a day going through our CNC. I mean, once you know that, and once that's clear, then you can take the steps to actually become more efficient and make that work.
Yep.
So that's just
Yeah.
another thought I had,
Yeah.
Where this analysis actually ends
Hey,
up.
let me tell you a
producing
little quick story on that. Those of you who read the Slippery Rock Gazette, and if you don't already get that, you should sign up for it. We have Synchronous Solutions does a monthly article in there, and the first one I wrote back in July of last year talks about the very first shop I worked in. The first, it was actually a solid surface shop, was back in 2000, and it was, I think, 2003, and they were not making any money, hadn't made any money for quite some time, and basically did the financial analysis that I walked you through today and said, this is how many throughput dollars you need to schedule every week. And then built a simple tool for them. What they didn't have ActionFlow back then to summarize throughput dollars. So they built this little spreadsheet and they started scheduling their shop at that many throughput dollars. And the shop immediately bitched about it because it was more than they were used to handling. We can't handle this, but the fact of the matter is that's what they needed to do. And necessity is the mother of invention. They figured out how to do it. And from that day forward, they were profitable. Just like that. Because they all of a sudden understood what they needed to do and set about doing it. And so when we work with our clients, it's about understanding where you are, understanding what needs to be done, and getting about the job of doing it.
Rick, we have a question in the chat from Dallas Grubbs. We are a flooring and cabinet store too. Can T dollars be applied to that side of the business along with the fab shop?
Absolutely. In fact, throughput dollars can be applied to and should be applied to any and every business. It just happens to work extremely well with custom shops. It's a game changer in the custom shops, but I have used throughput dollars in all kinds of business, from medical businesses to law offices to mining companies. Throughput dollars are throughput dollars, and as soon and every business that uses cost accounting to manage it has huge opportunities for improvement, because the mindset is just, it's not aligned with how your business makes money. So absolutely be sure and, hey, Maria, make sure you put the link into the chat box so people can, if they didn't get the QR code, can sign up for a meeting. But let's sit down
Yeah.
and talk, and let's apply it to your business and see what the impact could be.
Yeah, I
Great
just
question.
posted the link.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if
Absolutely.
you didn't get the QR code, go into the chat and copy that link. More than
And
happy to sit down and talk with you. It's complimentary. Figure out where you are, what makes sense, what the possibilities are.
I'm gonna, Don Benton said, I'm new to ActionFlow. Does the tool provide reporting of T-dollars through the process? Can it help us understand which products and services produce the most T-dollars? I would say yes, that right now the tool, the ActionFlow software does, and you saw a glimpse of it in the presentation. It can report on a day-to-day basis. Like, I think that schedule was showing the install, but you could show like your edge station or your saw station, and it can actually report exactly how many T-dollars are going through each point in the process. So the answer to that is yes. The second one, products and service and which produce the most T-dollars, I would say that's still a area of improvement where we can take these T-dollars on the jobs that we're calculating and consolidate and present those in a way that allows you to compare, say, this dealer versus that dealer, or this, this calculation type, like maybe Home Depot versus this, like commercial. So we still have work to do, and we're
Right.
going to be adding better reporting going forward. But we certainly want to be able to give you the ability to compare and see which of your types of jobs are producing the most throughput.
Yeah, and the analysis, with ActionFlow, as ActionFlow puts more and more of these tools into their software, the analysis is situational, right? And the what you can charge for a product is extremely situational. And so if you have a shop right now that has capacity, now is the time to fill that capacity at the expense of your neighbors. I know people
Okay.
don't like to talk about that, but there is, it's in the downturns and it's in the recessions that the millionaires and billionaires are made. And it's the ones that come through this process still standing are going to dominate the business in the future. So understanding these things and understanding how much you can charge or not charge and become dominant in your market is really important right now. We can help you with that.
Okay, Charles at Southern Marble says we're currently monitoring T-dollars with a daily report and scheduling accordingly. Is there a next step with T-dollars? I would say, number one, you're trying to maximize flow through the shop. And the next step, again, I think, these seminars, it's a pretty high priority where can you then start making decisions about what jobs you're going after and which markets you want to pursue. And so I would say that would be a next step. And I think you can get at some of that information, but we're going to try to make that more obvious and more easy for you to see that information.
Right.
I don't know, Rick, do you have any other thoughts about what the
Yeah,
next step would be?
So you're always working on expanding the constraint, protecting the capacity around it, and pushing and elevating your business. And we are now in a position as Synchronous Solutions to help you do that from one end of the business to another. We can help you integrate these concepts into your sales process, right? For those of you who are currently, hopefully, short period marketing constrained or sales constrained, we can help you bust that constraint through helping you with your marketing and sales. And we're doing that with a number of our clients right now. And so whatever your next constraint is, whatever your next opportunity to level up, there's always the next step to take. And we have a much more comprehensive offering now with business coaching, executive coaching, sales training, leadership training, and the like to help you constantly lift your team and your team systems.
Yeah, and one other thing I'm going to share my screen real briefly here. This isn't technically T-dollars, but it's a tool that is valuable. It's on your dashboard if you're in ActionFlow dashboard, and then a daily monitor. There's a few tools here. Unfortunately, this view right here is not great because I'm showing you ABC Countertops, which is our demo account, and the data in this isn't always realistic. But this is not directly related to T-dollars, but it's a buffer zone where it can show you red flags and it can show you the installs that are upcoming, and it's a tool that can allow you to make sure that you are the traffic or the output is flowing well. So that's just one other tool that's available that you should be taking advantage of. Another related, yeah. Oh, and how to get the T-dollars to show up in your install calendar. Try to pop back and forth. I think the biggest answer is to talk to your administrator, but I'll show you just real briefly on any schedule. So here's, like in this demo account, we have a template and a fab and commercial. And then over here on the right, there's a totals grid, and you can list there which metrics are going to show up in that scheduler. So that's where you would set that. One other question: does the material value for the include waste or not? That's I just stopped.
Yes, if it's a standard product. No, if it's slabs, right?
Well,
on-
it's a little more complicated. Like here's this simple island. I'm going to pull that up. And right here is so we were showing this cost versus a revenue. And in our examples, we were taking the 1,500 minus the 921 to get the $600 cost. So this number, there are different ways to calculate that in ActionFlow, depending on how precise you want to be. You can try to calculate what you actually paid for the slabs, but if it's a square foot job, like where you're charging by the square foot of the countertops, you don't necessarily have a one-to-one correlation between what the slabs were. And in that case, in answer, yes, we do have the ability to say, like, my waste is 30%. So my cost for that is going to be the cost of this 40 square foot job plus another 30%. And we do have the ability to include waste in that cost. So yeah, I think but there's another question here. How do we incorporate T-dollars into big ongoing commercial jobs?
That's a very interesting question. That would it's situational. Let's make an appointment. Let's talk.
Yeah, and from the ActionFlow perspective, if you were correctly calculating those costs on each of those quotes, it would do it. That I understand though that can be a little more difficult to do on a commercial job.
There's some interesting strategies around that.
But thank you. We'd love to talk about ActionFlow and talk to Rick about synchronous flow, and we'd love if you investigate and maybe join us in April to dive into this even further. So that's all I have to say. Rick, do you have any final thoughts?
No, thank you all for spending your time. And in addition to the Profits and Peace, at the end of April, we're doing a workshop in Nashville, Tennessee. Actually, it's a 3-day. Well, it's 1 day Synchronous Solutions, 2-day added to that for entrepreneurs from all over the Americas coming to join us. It'll be an amazing learning opportunity. That's another thing you can ask us about. How to get involved and participate in that amazing event at the beginning of April. But hopefully we'll see you all at the Profits and Peace retreat as well.
Thank you all. Have a good day.